What's up, guys? Welcome back to Off the Field Cricket Podcast. In today's video, we'll be reviewing and dissecting KKR squad for the 2020 IPL. KKR looks a hell of a squad this year as they embody traits of flexibility, power, composure, with impact players running right from number 1 to number 11. So before we dive into today's episode, let's take a moment to introduce our guest for today, Mr. Charbel Coorey from CricBlog. How are you doing, sir? Hope everything's good.
I'm well, guys. Thank you for inviting me. How are you guys doing?
We're doing great, sir. We're doing great.
Good. Thank you.
That's good.
So the way we're going to structure this, if you've been following our channel for a while now, you'll probably know how we structure our analysis. We go ahead with the strengths and weaknesses, the ideal playing 11, and lastly, we'll end with our prediction as to where we think by the 10th of November, KKR in this case, will end up on the league's table. To start with, any strengths off the top, Mr. Charbel, what do you think? Any strengths in particular?
Yeah, for me, it's that top six. You've got the talent of Shubman Gill. I'm really looking forward to watching him play this season.
Absolutely.
Then if you want to go with Sunil Narine opening the batting, I think those two can complement each other very, very well, because then that allows Shubman Gill to sort of ease into his innings, a very classy player.
Mm-hmm.
But then you've got the experience of Owen Morgan. We all know the value he provides.
Yeah.
He's an amazing addition. And I think they bought him at a pretty good price. That's a big strength of KKR. And then you've got, I think, Dinesh Karthik, who's one of the most underrated Indian T20 players, I feel. And I think he's got a lot of value to offer. And then Andre Russell, we all know what he's capable of. In that number 3 spot, you've got a choice, I feel, between Rahul Tripathi and Nitish Rana, which is, I think, a good headache to have.
Yeah.
I think definitely a strength is that top 6. I think it's pretty set, and it's a good asset for KKR.
And I think also, as you mentioned, in the top 6, if we focus more on the foreign players as well, I think, as you mentioned, Owen Morgan's a great buy, even Pat Cummins for that matter. I think their foreign core, I think, is one of the best in this IPL. So maybe an SRH might be able to compete with that with the likes of Warner and Best and Rashid Khan. But I think arguably KKR has the best foreign lineup. And even when you look at the backups, if you have the likes of Lockie Ferguson who did 150 clicks as well, I think you have great options in the foreign players this year.
I think the flexibility with their batting is another great strength that they have, in the sense that the likes of Rahul Tripathi, Nitish Rana, they can, or for that matter, Russell down the order, they can act as floaters, in the sense that if KKR are to begin in a very positive way and they have that platform at the top, they can they can unleash the likes of Russell and on Owen Morgan and Karthik. They can send them up the order to really to long the ball quite a bit and get them to a respectable total, or for that matter, I think 200 plus totals in this IPL could be really important. And I think the likes of Russell, Morgan can take care of that. And that's a huge positive to have that flexibility. If an early wicket is lost, you can send the likes of Rahul Tripathi or Dinesh Karthik up the order to protect the likes of Russell and Owen Morgan or something of that sort. So that's a great positive as well.
Spot on. Yeah.
And another positive, I think, is express pace, and what makes it more important is the fact that it's being played in the UAE on potentially spin-friendly, flattish surfaces, on which I think having express pace is an added advantage. Because if there is not much pace, carry, and assistance for the pacers, I think having that added pace, those 5 to 10 extra kilometers an hour, it really makes a difference, I feel. Because the likes of Pat Cummins, Lockie Ferguson, Prasidh Krishna, Kamlesh Nagarkoti, they have a great Indian core in the pace bowling department, which is a rare commodity in India, to be fair. And having those many of them, it's a bonus for KKR in that sense.
Yeah, and also add to that express pace, it gives you a lot more room to have those variations as well. It makes your slower ball even more effective, because you've got that big pace there. And then if your slower ball, say 20 kilometers slower than your fast ball, that's a very good variation to have. So that's a good point there.
Yeah.
And I think even on UAE surfaces as well, I think that slower ball will grip even more. So it makes that much effective as well. I think then talking about the grip in the surface, when we look at the spin attack, I feel they have great variety in that as well. They have different options. They have the likes of Kuldeep Yadav, who has your left arm, who acts as your left arm leg spinner. Then you have Sunil Narine, who's going to bat at the top as well. So that way you have the flexibility to play an extra bowler, because Sunil Narine opens. And then you have the part-time option of Nitish Rana as well. And also, I think we're going to see Varun Chakravarti play quite a few games this year, I feel, because he only got one game last year. and he's done fairly well in the local Tamil Nadu Premier League. So I think that is why he has been picked for a hefty sum.
You've got a backup, Chris Green can come in. He's very handy T20 bowler. And, he deserves his IPL opportunity. It's been a while coming for him, but he's performed pretty well around the world in T20 cricket. So if KKR need him to come in, he can do a good job.
And Nitish Rana too, he got the likes of Virat Kohli and AB de Villiers as well. So he's a handy option in the middle overs too. So
I looked at his economy rate. Nitish Rana's economy rate is below 7 in T20 cricket. I know he hasn't bowled a hell of a lot, but I think he's bowled around 450 deliveries in T20 cricket. His economy rate is very respectable, so he can be a good option too.
Recently in the CPL, Chris Green he's captaining the Guyana Amazon Warriors, and I think his economy rate is it's below 7 or 6, and he's taking wickets on a consistent basis, and he's bowling with the new ball. So you have that option with Pat Cummins to open the bowling if he gets an opportunity to play as well.
I think another advantage or something, a parallel I can draw compared to Mumbai is that I think some of the players, the likes of Shubman Gill and some of the other young players, Nitish Rana, they have been back for quite some time now. So they have that surety in the side. Because what happens often, we've seen this in RCB, that some of the players themselves don't have confidence or surety of their position in the squad that keeps playing in their minds, and it doesn't leverage their potential really. So I think the fact that they have a settled squad, a very, the youngsters especially, they have their position in the squad established, that adds to their, it helps them play at the very best, to the best of their ability.
And, I agree with that as well. I was just going to say, you can play with the freedom. You're spot on about RCB. You got all these players. I think Shimron Hetmeyer was a perfect example there. He sort of struggled in his first few games and then was left out until the last game, and now he's not there anymore. I think that's a really good point you make there. It's very important.
Now let's swiftly move on to the weaknesses. I think there are quite a few weaknesses. I'd say it's quite a powerhouse team. It's on its own. So not many weaknesses in the house. But firstly, the one that strikes me the most is no specialist death bowler. I think Pat Cummins isn't a specialist T20 bowler. I'd say he's done well in Test cricket. He's a decent ODI bowler. Where the ball's nipping around a bit, he gets assistance off the pitch. But to be fair, he's quite economical. We saw in the England versus Australia T20 series of late, he's done pretty decently. He's been quite economical. But if you ask me, would he be bowling consistent Yorkers, or he won't be going for runs at the death? Maybe not. I'm not sure. What do you think?
With Pat Cummins, I think Prasidh Krishna is also not a specialist death bowler. I think he's done well in patches. He's troubled Virat Kohli in a few games earlier last year. But I think he has also not had the best economy rates in the death. So I think if Pat Cummins does not stand up for KKR, I think they might have a problem there with their death bowling. Even looking at the likes of Nagar Koti and Shivam Mavi, I think there's a great potential there because they can click 150 kilometers per hour. But then to have that those variations and that consistency in the death is very vital.
Yeah, I agree around the death. I think Pat Cummins got to justify his price tag, not only from a personal point of view, but he's got a lot of responsibility at the death, and he's got to prove himself at that stage. I think another problem for KKR is around their seam department. I think a few of the bowlers have had a few injury concerns over the past, say, year or two. I know a lot of cricketers haven't had a lot of cricket this year for obvious reasons, but when you're coming back from injuries and you've got to come in and play a key role there, particularly in the death, that might be a problem for them this season. So I'll be watching closely to see how KKR go in the death overs, because you don't want to put too much pressure on your batting, even though their batting is very strong on paper. You want to try limit the impact because you've got that spin attack. You don't want to undo the good work at the back end.
There were speculations in the last few editions of the IPL that there was a rift between Russell and Karthik. Not really sure what's the veracity of that news, but if that's true, I think we heard in one of the interviews that Russell apparently wanted to bowl up front with the new ball, wanted to come up the order, so he had high expectations for himself. So if there is potentially, this is a potential point. You cannot guarantee that this is going to play a role, but if it does, it could. I mean, Russell is a major player. He's their premier finisher. So if he is not in a great mood, that may that could hamper his game. Maybe
that's true.
So that's a potential point. You never know if that is the truth or not.
I think just building on that, I think regarding Russell, I don't know how much bowling he will do this season. His knee he's really struggling with that knee. He's got a real problem there. Every time he bowls, he's limping. He's coming off the field, and so I think KKR have a problem there. Who's going to be that fifth bowler? How do they rotate their resources around on a particular day? Is it Nitish Rana plays as a floater, as a batsman, and he can fill in with a couple of overs potentially? That's a decision they've got to make and get right, I think, because you don't want to fall too far behind early in the tournament.
And the thing with Russell is he's a power striker. He's not a timer of the cricket ball. So I think we saw that he had a wrist problem too. Every time he hit a big shot, he grabbed onto his wrist. So it's quite crucial that he KKR preserves its resources. Maybe if they are going well at the top for the first 5 games or so, maybe they should rest Russell in the middle, because you don't want the likes of Russell to really miss out at the back end when KKR need him in the finals or the semi-finals in the playoffs. So that's a big
agreed.
It's like he's playtime in his free time. In the dance, they have to talk a glance, but we stepping out the room.